Welcome to another episode of This Is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast. Season 5, Episode 46. Your safe space to discuss sports, politics, social issues, and even religion, where we will take it all very seriously, but not too seriously. This podcast takes up a lot of my time, which means that between writing out the script, recording, re-recording, editing, producing, I don't have a lot of time to go back and listen to the episodes. Sometimes, though, I might be with someone who is a listener and they will listen to the podcast in my presence, so I get to hear it. And this happened to me this past week, and frankly, I was not that impressed with the product that I had put out. There was a lot of that old stream of consciousness kind of ranting style that I have, and it wasn't as coherent as I would like it. So I'm going to keep the pieces this week much smaller, much more bite-size, with a diversity of topics, because that's what I wanted to do last week, but then I got off on a tangent and I fucked that whole idea up. Well, I won't fuck it up 2 weeks in a row. I had sports topics on cue last week. I'm not even going to get to them because there's new sports topics to talk about, namely the fight between ESPN and YouTube TV. All that in the midst of the Stephen A. Smith solitaire gambling debacle. Love it. And gambling in sports. All of our sports now are just as legitimate as pro boxing, as cycling, and horse racing. Enjoy. Thank you to all my loyal listeners. I do appreciate you. If you're new to the podcast, please like, subscribe, thumbs up, 5-star, write a review, send to friends and enemies far and wide. This Is Why I Don't Vote podcast is on Patreon. Please consider supporting.
Act 1. ESPN Is In Trouble.
Between the age of, let's say, 12 and 30, I watched a lot of ESPN. Part of the reason why I think ESPN was such a cultural landmark for so many baby boomers and so many Gen Xers is because a lot of us felt like that was us. We were the guys who were talking about sports. We just didn't have a dais and we weren't wearing suits, but we felt like we could relate to these people because although they were sports analysts or sports announcers, they were doing the same thing that we were doing. They were doing so in a way that we could relate to as consumers, as an audience. And because it was at one point in our nation's history a fledgling organization, ESPN was not always this giant, this monolith that it is today. They actually catered to the customer. They had a lot of compelling content, and it was, crazily enough, about sports. There was a television program called Cold Pizza, where fucktards took to the airwaves to argue about nonsensical, improbable circumstances or happenings in the world of sports. And I was liberated. I was able to tune out not only that television program, but many of the programs that followed because that model seemed to work so well for so many window lickers and knuckle draggers. Is this me in the new enlightened Patrick? Is this me looking at things from below instead of above? No, because I still don't understand who the target audience is for this shit. Who likes it? I don't know anybody that enjoys, that look forward to the Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless circle jerk, yet it worked. Somebody was tuning in, and that somebody seemed to dominate the landscape of sports. And to the extent ESPN ever had a soul, that is truly when that soul was lost. Because as I've discussed on the podcast before, you can go out and look it up, those stupid-ass shows started doing so well that they eclipsed the ratings for the signature ESPN program, SportsCenter. So you had SportsCenter, which for years had been the number one show. It's set up as a sports network, and SportsCenter was its primary, its fundamental broadcast. It was the breadwinner. And all of a sudden, these dumbass shows where stupid people are bickering over nothing, they somehow get better ratings than your flagship broadcast. And ESPN, just like many networks have in the past, TLC. Do you remember when TLC actually stood for the Learning Channel? Do you remember that? And then they started having these reality television shows about obesely fat people and fucktards that would have 8 or 9 kids. MTV, the aptly named music television, used to play music videos and had programming around music. Reality television show came, huge ratings, cheap to produce, and ESPN, although you can't call it a reality television program, it's in the same mold. It looks like it's reality, but it's a bunch of cartoonish nonsense. ESPN sold out for it, and ESPN has sold out for gambling in sports. ESPN has sold out for its personalities being involved in all these different endeavors. And here we come to the apex of what's happened over the course of the last week to 10 days. You have both the dispute between ESPN and YouTube TV juxtaposed with one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever seen in my entire life. Stephen A. Smith turning his failure to do his job, to actually know what he's doing in his job, into a business opportunity, thereby proving that what Stephen A. Smith's job has been and always was to run his mouth, not to have any true insider knowledge into the world of sports. I had YouTube TV for years. I used it as the substitute for DirecTV. I didn't need the dish anymore. None of you do. YouTube TV, when it first came out, was like $35 and you got all the channels. And of course, once it became popularized, all of those broadcast entities came back and said, well, we're going to charge you more. We're going to charge you more. So YouTube TV went from being $35 to, when I canceled it, I believe it was $75.99 for the same package. Now, you could have gotten a reduced package, but for the same package that I had when I first became a subscriber, I was one of the very first subscribers, the price had almost doubled. And in today's economic environment, that was probably pre-COVID or right after COVID that I got rid of it. In today's environment, it's very difficult for any of these cable providers to continue to increase their rates. Many of them have come out publicly and said, look, we're not going to increase our rates anymore. One of those entities was YouTube TV. And what happened? ESPN, when their broadcast rights were done under the current contract, said, we're jacking up your rates. And YouTube TV said, fuck you. We're not going to pay it. First and foremost, nobody's watching your network anymore, which is true. No one's sitting around and watching a 30-minute or 1 hour long program of these dullards blathering back and forth over sports. And as I said earlier in this segment, is it really sports? No, it's a bunch of hypothetical nonsense, generally things that have not happened or are not going to happen, and having these blowhards speculate over it. Two, and this is the big thing, many of these leagues now are putting out highlights of their games that are much more compelling than the actual games themselves, because in the highlight reel that may last 10 or 15 minutes, you're not getting any commercials. The oxymoron should be staring you in the face, dear listener. The reason why ESPN thinks that they can get so much more money is because they have this content and they feel like they can shove so many ads in front of you because you're definitely going to watch these idiots blather on, when in fact the numbers bear out that no one wants to watch that shit. And fewer people want to sit in front of their TV and watch any of these games, whether pro or college, because there's so many ads. It is such a time commitment to get through a college football, college basketball, pro football, pro basketball game, a baseball game, to completely ruin any credibility that any of ESPN's personalities have or ever have had. They get on their network and they start hawking for ESPN to be on YouTube TV by going to some site and signing a petition saying, we've got to have ESPN on YouTube TV. I've seen speculation that that whole advertising campaign, using their personalities to do that, it may have been simply to drive more and more people to go to the ESPN app versus going to YouTube TV. They'd be so put off by having to sign a petition to get their programming back on YouTube TV that maybe they just say, screw it, I'll go directly to the ESPN app and subscribe there. But what happened, whether that speculation is correct or not, what happened was there was a huge backlash because people came out and said, why do I have to subscribe to another fucking app, another network? I have to pay again for content. So as the ESPN personality takes a slap in the face for whoring to have the network be on YouTube TV paying these astronomical rates, you get the ESPN darling, Stephen A. Smith, in what is a laughable controversy with this pay-to-play solitaire game. If you don't know the story, high level, NBA analyst Stephen A. Smith is at the NBA Finals to cover the NBA Finals, and while the game is going on, he's playing solitaire on his phone. He's then to go onto a dais with other people and make comments on the game, which of course now we realize Stephen A. Smith never really knew that much about sports. He just had the right delivery for whatever he was going to say, whatever bombastic or dumbass bullshit was going to come out of his mouth. Well, he turned that into a business opportunity. He partnered, and I use that term loosely, with this gaming company to promote an app where you play solitaire for money. You can actually win money, gamble, playing solitaire. He then was able to enlist many of the other biggest media personalities on ESPN to promote this nonsense. Laura Rutledge, Mina Kimes. Two things about this app. One, there are YouTube videos of people who have played this game for money for weeks, months. One girl did a series of videos of her playing this solitaire game for money for an entire year. She made videos for YouTube for an entire year playing this solitaire game for money. You know how much money she won after an entire year? And you know, if you're playing that game that long, you got pretty good at it. $100. She won an aggregate of $100. Now, I don't care if she played for 30 minutes a day or 6 hours a day. That is a fucking waste of your time. It's not just a waste of your money. It's a waste of your time. Do you want to know why she only won $100? Here's the second thing. Turns out that company that Stephen A. Smith partnered with and that he led other ESPN personalities to promote as well, yeah, they're getting sued because what they do on their games is they rig them. That's right. It's going to come as a complete and total shock to you, dear listener, but it's a gambling website that cheats. They have a series of two different kinds of bots. They have a bot that populates games so that your wait time for a new game is shorter. In other words, if it's all human players for a game, you may have to wait a minute, 2 minutes for the number of players necessary to enter that game to actually enter. That's a minute or 2 minutes that you may actually get off the app. So they have a bunch of bots that will come into those rooms, open up these games, so people will doom scroll a gambling game. Does that make sense? The second type of bot is the winner bot. They actually will place players, real human beings, in certain categories, and the winner bots will come into those games and they will win so that you can't get out of a certain category. The game is rigged using a computer algorithm that won't let you exceed it. You can't beat the machine. This is ESPN today. It's all about the money. I will routinely see in my professional life investors, real estate groups, they own commercial property. They have a ton of vacancies in their buildings, in their properties, and yet they have some of the worst per square footage rental rates in the valley. And you wonder, what the hell are they doing? And the fact of the matter is they've gone upside down. They're losing so much money, and they owe so much money on their loans, on whatever capital they've gone out and gotten to secure these properties. They can't not charge a certain luxury or premium rate. Their ship is sinking. They know it. They have to go out and actually charge as much as they can to try to salvage the business deal, because if they charge market rates, they're going to lose anyway. They're going to go bankrupt. That to me is Disney and ESPN. They've over-leveraged their brand. Everybody there is a whore. They don't have the type of market presence to warrant the money that they are demanding, and everybody there is greedy as hell. And we can all see it, and we're turning away from it. I liked the documentaries on the Learning Channel and the History Channel. I was an MTV devotee. I don't watch that shit anymore, and I haven't in years. ESPN, it's your turn.
Act 2. All sports have become boxing, cycling, and horse racing.
This all happens in the same week. The UFC announces that they catch a guy who is rigging one of his fights. It turns out now that the FBI had sent reports to the UFC, to Dana White, that they had seen a bunch of irregular bets on this one fight, and this may not be the first time the FBI has alerted the UFC that there is irregular betting on a fight where the outcome of the fight was then in question after you saw one fighter or the other do something that was so out of character or so odd. The Cleveland Guardians have not one, but two different pitchers that have been suspended from baseball and are likely going to jail for rigging pitches, for literally telling people that they were going to throw pitches out of the strike zone in order to win prop bets or these individual or singular bets. And it's crazy, just as an aside, that now you can bet on each and every pitch in a baseball game, but that you can. And it leads to, of course, someone saying, well, here's an easy opportunity. I can throw the ball out of the strike zone on the first pitch. As the pitcher, I'm still in the at-bat. I haven't really prejudiced myself or my team that much, and I can make a little coin on the side. I started this podcast 5 years ago under this premise that I was having this crisis of conscience with my relationship to sports, and this makes it so much easier now to divorce myself emotionally from the outcome of any sporting event because all these motherfuckers are cheating. Cheating to win, you say? No, they're just cheating. They're just throwing individual plays, individual punches, individual pitches for a fucking prop bet, for these individual bets that you can make now on these gaming apps. This is like steroids in baseball. At some point, your jaw doesn't drop anymore because when you realize how prevalent it was and you realize how many clues there were, not only to members of the league, people in the league office, people who were front office of each individual or respective team, that members of the media had inclinations that this was going on. And then when the bomb finally drops, it's like the fucking housing crisis in 2009. Everybody throws up their hands and says, oh my God, how did this happen? When so many people on the inside had insight as to it happening, they just didn't know when. This is the dot-com bubble bursting. This is the housing crisis of all sports. They aren't legitimate. One of the reasons why you don't care that much about boxing in this country anymore, about horse racing, no one really ever cared about cycling, but why you can't care about it anyway, even if you're in a part of the world that enjoys as much, Italy or France, it's all rigged. You don't know why someone is winning or why someone is losing. You don't know why someone does something that's so stupid or just can't seem to get healthy. It just keeps happening. I talk about circumstances in politics, in religion, in social movements, and I try to remind myself as I'm doing that, how do I know that this didn't persist for years, if not decades, if not centuries? We may just be experiencing a pattern and we haven't been able to recognize it up and until now. I refuse to believe that all of these incidents of gambling being discovered in this short period of time are specific to the fact that you have these sports gambling apps. Yes, it's probably made it more prevalent, but this shit existed from time immemorial. And it's not that the authorities weren't able to catch people. It's that these leagues have very likely been complicit. Not that they have helped or they have assisted any of this stuff to happen, but once they get wind of it or there's any suspicion, they realize the implication is so bad that it's better that we go along to get along than if we uncover it and make a big deal out of it. The legitimacy of these leagues is we believe the outcome of these contests to be uncertain, to be decided by players on the field, coaches, sometimes chance, luck, circumstance, and that's just not the case. There's a podcast with Pablo Torre and this guy who bet on the NBA for years and earned millions of dollars doing it. And one of the things that he pointed out, and this is true of all gambling, which makes it illegitimate. If you go anywhere and you win too much, they'll either A, kick you out, or B, they won't let you bet as much as you want. They will limit your bets. So this guy had been so successful betting basketball in Vegas through illegal books that he had to have what in the industry they call beards. These are people that you give money to go place bets so that you can bet as much as you want until you wear their welcome out and you have to go and find new beards. I've made this analogy before on the podcast and I'll make it again. Police officer pulls you over for going 90 in a 75. And you try to start talking your way out of it and he looks at you and says, I know you'll do 90 in a 75 every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So I'm writing you this ticket not so much because I caught you this one time. You got away with it the other 99 times. Go ahead and pay the penalty this once. That's what gambling is in sports. We hear these occasions where gambling has been identified. People have been caught in professional sports, in college sports. That's speeding. Those guys got caught, but they were speeding every day of the week and twice on Sunday. And there's very likely a bunch of other people that were speeding and never got caught. Yes, I'll admit it. This is how I rationalize not giving a damn that the Dodgers won their second straight World Series. Fuck those guys. This is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast.